Marcus Anderson had always been fascinated by the unknown. As a xenobiologist working for the Terran Research Consortium, he'd spent years studying alien life forms discovered on distant worlds. But nothing had prepared him for what happened to his colleague Dr. Elena Vasquez when she was assigned to study Station Omega 7, orbiting the gas giant Kepler 442b. Elena was brilliant, perhaps the most gifted xenobiologist of her generation. She had volunteered for the isolation assignment, eager to study the creature they'd discovered in the moon's subsurface ocean. The entity, designated Subject X9, had been captured after it killed 3 researchers on the initial expedition. It was massive, tentacled, and seemingly intelligent, but also incredibly hostile. The consortium's solution was typical of their bureaucratic mindset. Lock it away with someone expendable to study it. Marcus had protested when Director Harrison proposed the assignment. Elena wasn't expendable, she was irreplaceable. But Harrison had made his decision, influenced heavily by the political pressure from Earth's governing council. They wanted results, and they wanted them fast. Elena's protests about inadequate safety protocols fell on deaf ears. She was given a 6-month assignment with minimal backup systems and told to make the best of it. The research station was essentially a prison floating in space. Elena would be sealed inside with the creature, with only basic life support and communication systems. The consortium promised regular supply drops and constant monitoring, but Marcus knew better. Once that airlock sealed, Elena would be truly alone with something that had already demonstrated its capacity for violence. On the day of departure, Marcus watched helplessly as the transport ship carried Elena away. She had smiled at him through the viewing port, that same confident smile that had made him fall in love with her years ago, though he'd never found the courage to tell her. Director Harrison stood beside him, adjusting his expensive suit and checking his chronometer with the cold efficiency that had made him so successful in corporate politics. 6 months, Anderson, Harrison said without looking at him. 6 months and we'll have our answers about the creature's intelligence and potential applications. Dr. Vasquez understood the risks when she volunteered. Marcus wanted to point out that Elena hadn't really volunteered, that she'd been pressured into accepting the assignment after Harrison had threatened her research funding and career prospects. But speaking out against Harrison would only end his own career, and someone needed to monitor Elena's situation from the outside. The first month went smoothly. Elena's reports were detailed and professional, documenting the creature's behavior patterns and apparent cognitive abilities. She had nicknamed it Zephyr, after observing its graceful movements through the station's aquatic habitat. The creature seemed to respond to her presence, though it maintained a safe distance and showed no signs of the aggression that had characterized its earlier encounters with humans. Marcus noticed subtle changes in Alina's reports as the weeks progressed. Her scientific objectivity remained intact, but there were small personal observations that suggested she was developing a complex relationship with the creature. She mentioned its apparent curiosity about her daily routines, its seemingly protective behavior when the station's automated systems malfunctioned, and what she described as almost empathetic responses to her emotional states. Director Harrison grew increasingly impatient with Alina's reports. He wanted concrete data about the creature's potential military applications, not philosophical observations about interspecies communication. During their weekly briefings, he would interrupt Marcus's summaries with demands for actionable intelligence and complaints about the mission's cost. "We're not running a wildlife preserve out there, Anderson," Harrison would say, tapping his stylus against the conference table. "That creature killed our people. If Vasquez can't extract useful information from it, maybe we need to try a more aggressive approach." Marcus felt a chill whenever Harrison spoke like this. He knew the director was under pressure from military contractors who saw potential profit in weaponizing the creature. Alina's reports suggesting the entity might be peaceful or even benevolent were obstacles to those plans. 3 months into the mission, something changed. Alina's scheduled communication didn't come through at the appointed time. Marcus waited anxiously in the communications center, checking and rechecking the equipment. When the signal finally connected 12 hours later, Alina appeared disheveled and exhausted on the screen. "Sorry for the delay," she said, her voice strained. "We had some technical difficulties with the life support systems. Nothing serious, but it kept me busy for most of the day." Marcus noticed that she kept glancing away from the camera, as if something off-screen was demanding her attention. When he asked about her health and the station's status, her answers were shorter than usual, lacking the detailed explanations he'd come to expect from her meticulous nature. Over the following weeks, Alina's communications became increasingly irregular. Sometimes she would miss scheduled check-ins entirely, offering vague explanations about equipment maintenance or research demands. Other times, she would appear for brief conversations but seem distracted and evasive. Marcus began to suspect that something significant was happening on the station that Alina wasn't reporting. Director Harrison's patience finally snapped during a particularly tense briefing session. Alina had missed 3 consecutive communications, and when she finally responded, she claimed to have been dealing with a minor hull breach that had taken days to repair. Harrison's face flushed red as he listened to her explanation. "This is unacceptable," he declared after ending the communication. "We're not getting the results we need, and now we can't even maintain basic contact protocols. I'm authorizing a retrieval mission." Marcus felt his heart sink. A retrieval mission meant sending armed personnel to extract Alina and the creature, regardless of the potential consequences. He had seen Harrison's idea of specimen retrieval before, and it rarely ended well for anyone involved. "Sir, perhaps we should give Dr. Vasquez more time," Marcus suggested carefully. "Her research has been progressing well, and the communication issues might be temporary technical problems." Harrison fixed him with a cold stare. "Your emotional attachment to Dr. Vasquez is clouding your judgment, Anderson. This mission has already cost us more than projected, and we have investors expecting results. The retrieval team launches in 72 hours. That night, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Using his security clearance, he accessed the station's emergency communication system and sent a coded message to Alina. The message was simple: "Package arriving early. Prepare accordingly." Alina's response came 12 hours later, also in code: "Package not welcome. Will secure premises." Marcus understood. Alina was telling him that she didn't want to be retrieved, that something had happened on the station that made the consortium's intervention dangerous or undesirable. But there was nothing he could do to stop Harrison's plan. The retrieval ship Harbinger launched on schedule, carrying a team of 12 armed specialists and sophisticated capture equipment. Marcus watched the departure from the observation deck, wondering if he would ever see Alina alive again. Director Harrison stood beside him, radiating satisfaction at having finally taken decisive action. "This is how things should have been handled from the beginning," Harrison said. "Clear objectives, proper equipment, and personnel who understand their priorities. Dr. Vasquez has had her chance to produce results through peaceful means. Now we'll get what we need through more reliable methods." The Harbinger's journey to study Station Omega 7 took 18 days. During that time, Marcus tried repeatedly to contact Alina, but received no response. The station's automated systems showed normal life support and structural integrity, but Alina herself remained silent. Marcus began to fear the worst, imagining scenarios where the creature had finally turned hostile or where Alina had suffered some kind of accident. When the Harbinger finally reached the station, Captain Rodriguez immediately reported anomalies. The station's external lights were functioning normally, and all systems appeared operational, but there were no responses to communication attempts. The docking bay doors were sealed, and the manual override codes weren't working. "Station appears to be in lockdown mode," Rodriguez reported to Mission Control. "We're preparing to make a forced entry through the emergency airlock." Marcus listened to the communications feed with growing anxiety. Alina's silence could mean many things, but none of them were good. Either something had happened to her, or she was actively avoiding contact with the retrieval team. Given her coded message weeks earlier, Marcus suspected the latter. The forced entry took 6 hours. The Harbinger's cutting tools had to slice through reinforced barriers that Alina had apparently installed to secure the station. When the team finally gained access, their initial reports were confusing and contradictory. "The station appears to be functioning normally," reported Sergeant Collins, the team leader. "Life support is optimal, and there are no signs of struggle or damage. But we can't locate Dr. Vasquez or the creature." The team conducted a systematic search of the station's various compartments, documenting everything they found. Alina's personal quarters were neat and organized, with no signs of hasty departure or struggle. Her research notes were comprehensive and current, suggesting she had been working normally until very recently. But Alina herself was nowhere to be found. It was Private Martinez who made the discovery that changed everything. While searching the station's lower levels, he found a section that hadn't appeared on any of the original blueprints. Behind a concealed hatch was a large chamber filled with warm, breathable water and soft, bioluminescent lighting. "Control, you need to see this," Martinez whispered into his communication device. The images he transmitted showed Alina floating peacefully in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the creature's massive, flowing tentacles. She appeared to be sleeping, her expression serene and untroubled. The creature itself was motionless except for the gentle undulation of its appendages, which seemed to be creating a protective cocoon around Alina's body. Captain Rodriguez ordered his team to maintain distance while they assessed the situation. Alina was clearly alive and unharmed, but the nature of her relationship with the creature was unlike anything in their training or experience. The entity that had been described as a violent threat was cradling her with what appeared to be genuine tenderness. "Dr. Vasquez," Rodriguez called out through the chamber's communication system. "This is Captain Rodriguez with the Consortium Retrieval Team. Please respond if you can hear me." Alina's eyes opened slowly, and she turned toward the sound of Rodriguez's voice. Her expression showed no fear or distress, only a kind of peaceful resignation. She spoke quietly to the creature in what sounded like a complex series of clicks and harmonics, and its tentacles gradually released their protective embrace. "Captain Rodriguez," Alina said as she swam toward the chamber's edge. "I was expecting you, though I had hoped for more time." "Dr. Vasquez, are you injured or under duress?" Rodriguez asked, following his mission protocols. "We're here to extract you and the specimen safely." Alina's laugh was soft but bitter. "Under duress? No, Captain. I'm exactly where I choose to be, and Zephyr isn't a specimen to be extracted. Zephyr is a sentient being with the right to exist freely." The standoff that followed lasted 3 days. Alina refused to leave the chamber voluntarily, and the creature positioned itself between her and the retrieval team whenever they approached. Rodriguez contacted Mission Control repeatedly, requesting guidance on how to proceed with a non-cooperative subject and a potentially dangerous alien entity. Director Harrison's response was predictably ruthless. Use whatever force is necessary to complete the mission. Both the woman and the creature are consortium property, and they will be retrieved regardless of their preferences. But Alina had prepared for this eventuality. Over the months of her isolation, she had modified the station's systems in ways that gave her significant control over the environment. When Rodriguez attempted to flood the chamber with sedative gas, Alina activated countermeasures that vented the gas harmlessly into space. When the team tried to cut through the chamber's walls, they found that Alina had reinforced them with materials scavenged from throughout the station. Marcus, monitoring the situation from Earth, realized that Alina had transformed her prison into a fortress. She had used her scientific expertise and months of preparation to create a sanctuary where she and the creature could resist the consortium's efforts to separate them. The breakthrough came when Alina finally agreed to communicate directly with Mission Control. Her image appeared on screens throughout the consortium's headquarters, showing her floating beside the creature in their shared chamber. She looked healthy and determined, but also profoundly changed by her months of isolation. "Director Harrison," Alina said, her voice steady and clear, "I know you're listening. I want to make you an offer." Harrison leaned forward in his chair, his expression mixing curiosity with irritation. "Dr. Vasquez, you are in violation of your mission parameters and consortium regulations. Surrender yourself and the specimen immediately, and we can discuss reduced consequences for your actions." Alina shook her head. "I'm not surrendering anything, Director, but I am offering you something far more valuable than a captive creature for your weapons programs. I'm offering you the key to peaceful first contact with an entire civilization." Over the following hour, Alina presented her discoveries about the creature's true nature. Zephyr wasn't simply an intelligent animal, but a scout for an advanced aquatic species that inhabited dozens of worlds throughout the local stellar region. The aggression that had characterized earlier encounters had been defensive responses to what the creatures perceived as unprovoked attacks on their territory and people. "Zephyr has been teaching me their language and culture," Alina explained, her hand resting gently on one of the creature's smaller tentacles. "They're not hostile by nature. They're explorers and philosophers, much like we claim to be. But they've learned to fear humans because of how we've treated the few individuals we've encountered." Alina's revelations changed the entire dynamic of the situation. If she was correct, the consortium wasn't dealing with a dangerous specimen, but with a representative of a powerful interstellar civilization. The political and economic implications were staggering. Director Harrison found himself caught between his original plans and the need to reassess the mission's objectives. Military contractors were still demanding access to the creature for weapons development, but the possibility of establishing peaceful relations with an advanced alien species offered even greater potential profits. "Assuming your claims are accurate, Dr. Vasquez," Harrison said carefully, "what exactly are you proposing?" Elena smiled, and Marcus could see in her expression the confidence that had always made her such an effective researcher. "I'm proposing that we abandon the extraction mission and instead establish Study Station Omega-7 as humanity's first embassy to an alien civilization. Zephyr and I have already begun negotiations for formal contact between our species." The implications of Elena's proposal rippled through the consortium's hierarchy over the following days. Elena had effectively made herself indispensable by becoming humanity's only reliable translator and diplomat with the alien species. Any attempt to remove her by force would not only be morally questionable but strategically disastrous. Marcus watched the political maneuvering with a mixture of admiration for Elena's brilliance and concern for her safety. She had turned the tables on Director Harrison and the consortium, transforming herself from a disposable researcher into a crucial diplomatic asset. But he also knew that Harrison was not the type of man to accept such a reversal gracefully. The final confrontation came when Harrison attempted to override Elena's authority by ordering Captain Rodriguez to extract her using non-lethal force. Elena's response was swift and decisive. She activated emergency protocols that sealed the diplomatic chamber and sent automated distress signals to the alien civilization's nearest outposts. "Director Harrison," Elena said during her final communication with Earth, "you have approximately 6 hours before Zephyr's people arrive to investigate the distress signal. I suggest you use that time to decide whether humanity's first contact with an alien civilization will be characterized by cooperation or conflict." Harrison's face went pale as the implications sank in. If Elena was telling the truth, his actions could determine whether humanity entered the galactic community as a welcomed member or a potential threat to be contained. Marcus couldn't help but smile as he watched Harrison struggle with the consequences of his own short-sighted decisions. Elena had not only protected herself and the creature she'd come to care for, but had potentially secured humanity's future among the stars. She had turned her imprisonment into an opportunity, her isolation into influence, and her supposed expendability into indispensability. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed embassy station, watching as Alina and Zephyr worked together to facilitate humanity's first formal diplomatic meetings with the aquatic collective. Alina had been officially appointed as Earth's first interspecies ambassador, a position that came with unprecedented authority and resources. Director Harrison had been quietly reassigned to a minor administrative role after the success of Alina's diplomatic initiatives had made his previous policies seem not only cruel, but incompetent. The military contractors who had demanded weaponization of alien technology had been replaced by trade representatives eager to establish beneficial relationships with humanity's new allies. She did it, Marcus murmured to himself, watching Alina translate complex philosophical concepts between human and alien delegates. She actually did it. Alina had not only survived her ordeal, but had transformed it into the foundation for a new era in human history. She had been sealed away with what everyone believed was a beast, but had discovered a kindred spirit and a bridge to the stars. Her courage, intelligence, and compassion had not only saved her own life, but had opened new possibilities for her entire species. As Marcus watched Alina work, he realized that her greatest triumph wasn't just diplomatic or scientific. She had proven that even in the face of institutional cruelty and abandonment, individuals could still choose hope over fear, understanding over hatred, and cooperation over domination. In doing so, she had not only saved herself but had helped save humanity's future as well. The story of Study Station Omega-7 would be told for generations, but Marcus knew that the real lesson wasn't about alien contact or political maneuvering. It was about the power of one person's refusal to accept that violence and exploitation were inevitable, and her determination to find a better way forward, even in the most impossible circumstances. Alina had been sent away to die with a monster, but she had returned as humanity's guide to the stars, cradled not in the arms of a beast, but in the embrace of a new friendship that would change the universe forever.